What I've been asked to do today is to share with you just a little bit of information, a little bit of a capsule about some of the research and demonstration activities that we've been conducting over the past dozen or more years now, summarize some of that research, and also to make the case that some of these systems that we're discussing, they do need some further refinement, but I think it's fair to say that they are becoming increasingly relevant in the future. And certainly since I've been in agriculture here in the San Joaquin Valley, that becomes increasingly apparent. I'd also like to, at the end, just sort of talk to you a little bit about what I think a potential role could be for this type of institute. That a lot of the work that we've done in the past initially started out as individual or independent, somewhat independent projects, a fair amount of cover crop residue type of work. We've done a lot of independent evaluations on water use and water balance in some of the different systems that we've looked at. We've looked at independent crop, single crop activities, and more as we look at these systems, they are truly integrated systems. Whether it be the type of crop, whether it be the type of soil and the crop rotation mix, there are many things that go into conservation agricultural systems. And this is just a reminder to us that these things are going on not just in California, but certainly throughout the country. In the Midwest, there's been a lot of activity. Talking to recently at the Beltwide Cotton Production Conferences in Orlando, Florida, and the Southeast right now is doing a lot of conservation tillage where you didn't see that just a few years ago. So a lot of transition and things to learn from. And early on, and we continue to work individually with small farmers, those that are interested in looking at and evaluating at these systems in a different way. And so sometimes that means working with one piece of equipment on one part of a field to look at and conduct some of our evaluations and look at these systems, try to make them a little bit clearer what some of the options or problems might be with that change or tweak. If we look at one of the studies that we conducted or initiated in 1999, it sort of does give a little bit of a picture of what we've been able to accomplish looking at long-term rotational systems where we've had a focus on, in this case, two important economic crops on the west side, processing tomatoes and cotton. And what we did with that trial is, over the years, we've been able to take standard tillage practices and compare them with and without the cover crop. We've also, on a side-by-side and replicated fashion, included a conservation tillage program that we thought would fit with this cotton tomato system, cover crops again, and then without cover crops. And as we've developed this system, we have seen significant changes over time in terms of our ability to rotate and farm those systems. And some of the things that we've learned have even included things like the fact that these have been surface irrigated systems, and now, because of the reality of water out there, really subsurface drip seems to be the apparent direction that we'd like to go to move that forward. We've looked at transgenic cottons, for instance, over time, different varieties and how variety is influenced by some of these practices. And these are just a few of the variables that we deal with on a year-to-year basis. This is a photo of on the right here, you can see the cotton stubble here. It's all dislodged. It's all in compliance with the pink bollworm program and plow down requirements. On the left-hand side, you see tomato residues from the previous year. And this is obviously a picture in late winter, just before spring planting and transplanting. But right in here is where we're going to place our transplant tomatoes. And over here is where we're going to double row 30-inch cotton bed system. And again, we've got some good experience now, and one of the things that we've wanted to know is how are these soils changing over time, and what is that? How much of an impact is that on the cropping system that we're looking at. I know a few of you can't see all of the data up here, but basically, this is the standard tillage no-till, standard tillage cover crop, and so on down here. We've been able to take some of the national standards that NRCS has developed and looked at and evaluated these and compared them with other activities across in agriculture outside of California. And we've been able to develop erosion estimates. Primarily, in this case, wind erosion is something that can impact our soils. A soil conditioning index, looking at how tillage and the impact of cover crops has had on long-term soil conditioning. And we've been able to look at this STIR index, which is an index of the turnover and the rapidity with which the soils are disturbed over the course of the season, and had independent evaluations here. And of course, things like diesel fuel use and fuel cost looking at these soils has been evaluated over time. We've also taken we've had various economists on the project over time. Bottom line in many of these systems is we don't want to just demonstrate that these systems can work. We also want to demonstrate that, or work to demonstrate, that there are some economic options and differences here. And oftentimes we do find that often our conservation tillage systems in particular are definitely less expensive to operate and have some benefits to them. Here you get a little bit of a sense for some of the high residue systems that we've developed over the years. Here again, cotton in with a wheat cover crop, and a transplanting operation over on field 10. And looking at yields. We've actually had some very good responses, particularly to the tomato systems, but also into the cotton systems. And so if we look at our yields here from 2000 to 2011, we've seen one of the things that stands out here is the impressive nature of this treatment here, which is a conservation tillage no cover crop system. We've actually consistently seen improvements in yield, sometimes unexplainable. Looking at year-to-year effects, but we've seen a consistent improvement in a cover conservation tillage approach with our transplant tomatoes. In terms of the cotton systems, we've had problems that include sometimes stand establishment. On our first year, we actually had a big problem, an issue with mites. Early mites came in and just sort of took over. Because of an adjacent roadway and some problems there of catching that on time. But in general, we've actually had some extremely good results, and we're at or above county averages for Pima and Kala cotton systems. So they've performed well, and generally speaking, we're not taking any hits, certainly, and sometimes we do see some benefits to the conservation tillage approaches. But one of the comments or things that we have to consider over time, for instance, is the use of water, and how sometimes cover crops, if we're going to go with a cover system, they do in fact consume water. And so we have to deal with how do we provide water for a winter cover crop if we're going to do that type of a system. And so on a year like this, for instance, it's obviously we can't rely on rainfall. And so we need to think of supplementing with irrigation. And so in an area that's already starved of water, these are some things that we need to look at. And at the end, I'll wrap up with a little bit of some data on how we actually can capture water late in the season and help actually reduce water use with through the action of some cover crop type systems. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about soil carbon and sequestration, and that's something that this group has also been very interested in. And we've got some good soil scientists now in the audience here. Willie, you're here today. He helped to certainly develop some of this information. And but our interest is looking at the long term of the system, and we've seen soil carbon, for instance, dramatically have some fairly dramatic impacts over the years. Here you can see a standard till soil carbon weights in the different fractions here, and we've seen 20 to 30% increases in soil carbon over this 10-year period that we've looked at here. We've also had, over the years, some evaluations on the impact on air quality of conservation compared to standard tillage practices. And we've looked at actually individual events, from chiseling to power incorporation, even spray or Lilliston operations. What are the impacts, or what are the relative impacts of these activities on some of our air quality issues? Those studies have been translated into larger scale board studies where university or Air Resources Board have been involved and looked at various systems here. Tom Barcelos cooperated in this activity and helped develop some of the data that we see here on conservation versus non-conservation tillage type systems. And then going into, again, looking at some of our soil quality benefits and how they've changed over time. We had, this last summer, we had a group out there, a lot of NRCS, Fresno State, UC. We had a Resource Conservation District people out there, and we all kind of dug in the surface soil and went out and did a bunch of evaluations, looking at infiltration rates and looking at all these different soil quality characteristics. And you can see one of our Professor Horwath there working with us on that activity. So we've had a great exchange of information and how soil and conservation tillage can impact in a very significant way soil quality characteristics. As Ron pointed out, we've had some very good experiences working with growers who have taught us, and hopefully we've shared some good information about large-scale tillage and conservation tillage activities. You know, it wasn't that long ago where this would be a complete freak out there to have a transplant tomato crop going into a triticale cover crop that we see here. And we've had the opportunity to work with the dealerships and work with the equipment manufacturers on developing newer technologies that are working, and also importing people again from outside of California to help us work with these sometimes high residue systems. Occasionally, we even team up multiple operations with a single pass as one way to reduce our overall tillage, and the ability to change the type of tracking system that we have in the field has had an impact on soil compaction, which is often a big concern for those working with conservation tillage type systems. And I like that photo too, Ron. I won't say much more about it. It's something that I think has been a great advantage to be able to do two things at once, if you will, and be efficient with the time and those heat units that are so critical during the middle of the season. And as an old soil scientist by training, I certainly appreciate Alan's comment here about the worms in the field, and certainly a contribution there to our soil quality and the soil chemistry. Of course, these benefits, they're reducing labor. We're seeing fuel savings. And I like this quote here from Tom here, that in some of his fields, land planes, listers, mulchers, and cultivators are no longer required. The ability to change over to a different set of tools and eliminate some is, I think, an important element to conservation-based systems. And then collectively, if we look at what these systems are doing as adoption occurs on a more widespread basis, we're beginning to now at least have some idea of what some of the emission reductions are collectively. So as we're going forward in this more recent phase of research and developing information, We're beginning to work with more and more diverse systems. We continue to work with vegetable crop systems on overhead. This is actually a trial where we're looking at irrigation overhead versus furrow irrigation systems in broccoli and onions. We're also beginning to do a lot of work in drip irrigation. Not that drip irrigation is any less or more efficient than overhead systems. They actually have very comparable characteristics in terms of the uniformity of how they deliver. But we have made more recently a little bit more of research and information developed in overhead irrigation, simply because in the past we haven't developed a lot of that information. And so we certainly see a fit for both drip micro irrigation systems as well as efficient overhead systems. And I would also add to that I think there's certainly a fit in conservation agriculture in some cases for furrow or surface irrigated systems where the soil type and the situation is appropriate. Again, some of the information on some of the tomatoes here and catch cans out there, doing some evaluations over at John Diener's site. And some of the catch can data, again, in this case with the overhead system at the Research and Extension Center, showing very high distribution uniformities when the systems are maintained and properly operated. So one of the final ideas here is taking the evaporation out of ET. Is that something that's really possible? And I suppose in an absolute sense, absolutely not. However, if we can shift or begin to think about minimizing evaporation and in a relative way increasing our transpiration, there is an opportunity for some water savings there. And so some of the more recent work that we've done has showed that somewhere approaching about an inch of water can be retained in the soil surface foot under no-till systems than when compared to tillage, more in tillage intense system when we've moved from wheat to corn rotation. And so we're going to continue some of these evaporation studies, and more recently we've developed a California agriculture article that'll be in press here in the next couple of months that outlines some of our work looking at the impact and reducing overall ET and making more available water in high residue systems. So to summarize, I think we do believe there's been a good track record out there for our group, and we aim to develop new and relevant models for future agricultural systems. And some of those will involve improved air and soil quality, things beyond our tillage experience, and water use efficiency is going to continue to be an important element if we want to work in conservation agriculture and make some inroads. There are some additional opportunities. And we do see the potential for improved carbon and sequestration, and certainly nitrogen utilization will continue to be an issue from the standpoint of regulation and what we're going to be seeing moving forward with regard to its impact on the greenhouse gas issue. We also can make the case now that these new agricultural systems models are complex, and they're going to require continued evaluation and widespread adoption. And that we have the continued goal moving forward now to work with growers in documenting some innovative conservation elements on their farms. Some of the benefits that we're seeing to agriculture is that we're promoting a science-based information program about complex systems. And the better that we are equipped to deal with questions that come not only within the agricultural community, but outside the agricultural community, the better off we're going to be as a collective. We definitely see a format for describing environmentally and economically sustainable ag issues with CASI And we see it as the potential there for developing news information that's available to growers, agricultural support industry, and the public at large. There's been a number of opportunities and examples where we've been able to just play a bit of a role. Certainly grower surveys, some of the things that Ron described earlier, surveys about their ideas about conservation tillage and moving forward and how that change has taken place, to document that. That's a valuable activity and something that we need to communicate more. Statistics on water use efficiency and gains in irrigation system conversion, nutrient application decisions, and the efficiency gains that we're seeing through development and revision of university guidelines. And I feel that the Institute is uniquely positioned to describe current grower successes in increasing the quality and productivity of California agriculture. And with that, I'll say thank you.
Additional information about these innovative conservation agriculture systems is available on the Conservation Agriculture Systems Innovation website.